What is going on, everybody? I have decided to commit like to dislike suicide here with a fun video, the most overrated player on each NFL team. So the criteria here is going to be my own perception of how good a player is compared to public perception of a player that I have grown familiar with just via Twitter and making videos here on YouTube. Also, just how the league values a player, so maybe looking at his contract. So that's the criteria. We're going to go from the least most overrated player and work our way down. That is going to be the order that we go in, so you can kind of see who I think is more overrated than other guys. And then before we get into it here, please do hit that like button, and I also encourage you not to hit that dislike button. Just by the nature of this video, we did have to pick a player on every team, so I'm not trying to necessarily bash every player on this list. We did just have to come up with someone for every team. So let's get into it. At 32, really couldn't think of anyone for the LA Chargers. I went with Travis Benjamin. He's basically getting paid a bunch of money to drop balls as a deep threat and return kicks. Then number 31, prep yourselves, Tom Brady of the New England Patriots. Wait, don't, just hang around, don't go anywhere. Number 1 is, I couldn't think of anyone else on this team. I thought about maybe Donte Hightower, but I actually think, you can make an argument for him to be underrated too because of the role he plays on that defense. I couldn't think of anyone else here. And number 2 is, based on our criteria, the public perception of Tom Brady is that he is the consensus best football player of all time, right? The GOAT. In my opinion, the starting criteria for being the greatest football player of all time, you should at least be the clear-cut best player at your own position. I cannot say that about Tom Brady based on my own evaluations. Yes, he's got a bunch of rings. That's awesome. But statistically, he doesn't really compare to a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Whether you're looking at playoff stats or regular season stats, just on, the eye test, there's not a whole lot that separates Tom Brady from like Peyton Manning in his prime or Aaron Rodgers. So don't get me wrong, Tom Brady's one of the 3 to 5 best quarterbacks to ever play, but you will not hear me refer to Tom Brady as the GOAT, and he actually makes this list for me. Number 30, Justin Simmons. Not going to hang on this one. Denver was a hard team to come up with someone. Really aggressive safety. I think he's a guy that does make some big plays, and Broncos fans really like him, but his gambling addiction as a safety, if you will, can bite this team in the ass sometimes as well. Number 29, Dontari Poe, currently on the Carolina Panthers. He's bounced around from the Chiefs to the Falcons, now to the Panthers. Run-stuffing nose tackle, a guy that has a pretty big reputation as a former, top 12 pick, has never really panned out and reached that upside, and he's continued to get paid to basically be a replacement-level nose tackle. 28, Josh Doctson, has never met his expectations as a former first-round pick for this Redskins team. Maybe getting some better stability there at quarterback can help him resurrect his career. I thought he was overdrafted to begin with, so he's going to come in here at 28 for the Redskins. Next, we have Donte Moncrief. Can say pretty similar things about him. He is a guy that had some time in the sun as a fantasy football player, made a short name for himself with Andrew Luck and the Colts, but really has not been able to do anything since. So Donte Moncrief. Number 26, this is going to be similar to what we said about Tom Brady. Don't freak out, Larry Fitzgerald. First ballot Hall of Famer, one of the, 4 to 5 best receivers to ever play. Personally, I think he has kind of overstayed his welcome in Arizona entering next season. I do think Larry Fitzgerald is overrated and is going to hinder some of the development there in Arizona with Kyler Murray developing some bad tendencies, having to throw into more contested windows because Larry Fitzgerald not creating a lot of separation at this point in his career. I think it's time for them to move on. I do think Larry Fitzgerald at this point is overrated. Then 25, Kenyon Drake for the Miami Dolphins. Just not a big fan of him. He's fine. I see him as someone that should be closer to like TJ Yeldon as a relief pitching third down back, change of pace guy. I don't see him as a full-time starter. He's fine. It was also kind of hard to come up with a name for anyone on the Dolphins. Next, for the Jets, we have Trumaine Johnson. Overpaid corner for the Jets. I think they regret that signing in free agency last year. I don't think a lot of Jets are going to disagree with Trumaine Johnson being the most overrated player on this team. Next, we have Marlon Mack for the Indianapolis Colts. A lot of Colts fans really buy into Marlon Mack as a guy that can be a 3-down feature back, reach some sort of a top 10 upside. I don't see it. To me, a comparison for him is something like a James Starks. He's a little tall, little stiff as a runner in my opinion. He's fine. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, run for a little bit of power. I'm just not a huge fan. I think he's a little overhyped. 22, Damon Harrison for the Detroit Lions. Hard to put the best run defender in the NFL on this list, but you guys who have followed this channel know my takes on run defense being, a little overrated these days. Everyone can pretty much stop the run, and to put him out there on third downs where he can't really get after the quarterback in any regards, he is a little bit overrated. I think you would ask around and some people would say he's a top 5 defensive tackle. His lack of the ability to rush the passer takes him out of that conversation for me. Next, we have Eli Manning. Hard to say that he's overrated at this point because pretty much everyone has woken up to the fact over the last 3 years that Eli Manning can't really play football anymore. But you ask a lot of Giants fans, and they are still making excuses for this guy. They're still saying his offensive line sucked last year, despite the fact that Eli Manning was the 37th least pressured quarterback in the NFL last year, had plenty of time to throw, and also had Odell Beckham and a just plethora of weapons last year. Still couldn't get the job done. So we're still going to go with Eli Manning. Next, we have Derrick Henry. Nice player. He's a slow starter, and for a power back, I'd much prefer a guy like Leonard Fournette that can explode for that 1 yard that you need. Derrick Henry, he's pretty good on outside zones, actually, is kind of where he's stronger at, but I think he, as a guy that was hyped up coming out of Alabama that has had some big games, does lack that consistency, and I do think is pretty overhyped. Next, we have Preston Brown, tackle machine for the Bengals. Really lacks coverage skills. To me, just tackles in general is the most overrated stat in the NFL. Players make Pro Bowls off of this stat alone. Oftentimes, getting a tackle means you just got beat in coverage or were unable to make a tackle before a guy got a first down, and you're just, cleaning up the trash. Tackles to me is the least important stat in all of the NFL. And Preston Brown really doesn't do a whole lot for me as a linebacker for the Bengals. 18, we've got Jared Goff for the LA Rams. He did impress me a lot last season, and I think he can be about a Matt Ryan type of player, but he has clear flaws in terms of, processing when the play breaks down, ability to extend plays. You put it all in front of him like Sean McVay and this Rams team has done, he can really produce. But just like we saw in the Super Bowl, this is a quarterback that you are going to have to really help out. Number 17, Andrus Pete for the Saints. I don't know where the vibe is for him with Saints fans these days, but he really has struggled since being a first-round pick for this team. I'm surprised they have not replaced him yet. So Andrus Pete for the New Orleans Saints. Then we have Sammy Watkins for the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a bit of a head-scratcher when they gave him a massive contract. Now, he might get an opportunity to step up here for the Chiefs if Tyreek Hill's going to face suspension here. And when healthy, Sammy Watkins is not overrated, but that health, a massive concern for Sammy Watkins. Just has really never lived up to A, the hype of being that top 4 pick, or B, just the contracts he's been given throughout the years. 15, Jason Witten. Just talked about this player in my Cowboys deep dive. If I had to vote for the Hall of Fame, I would not vote for Jason Witten. And him coming back to this Cowboys team, I would not be excited about this if I was a Cowboys fan. He was already unathletic and, was never really much of a mismatch problem to begin with. Now he's a year coming out of, he's been in retirement for years, been in the booth. So, I think they'd be best using Jason Witten as an on-field coach. And getting some of these more athletic younger tight ends going. I don't think Jason Witten can really play anymore. Maybe he proves me wrong. Number 14, Jerick McKinnon here for the 49ers. Again, kind of a head-scratching contract when they gave him a lot of money. Now, I think they can actually get rid of him now at this point. I think it was pretty front-loaded in terms of guarantees, but similar things to what we said about Sammy Watkins. The guy just can't stay healthy. But I also don't think his tape was worth the contract they gave him to begin with if he were healthy. He's a fine player, but to me, he comes into that same kind of conversation with Kenyon Drake as more of a third down relief pitcher type back, which is the role he may be able to play here this season for the Niners. Next, we have Matt Ryan for the Atlanta Falcons. You know, he's a good player, and I've said he's a top 12 quarterback for me. By no means is he bad. By no means can you not win a Super Bowl with Matt Ryan. But you will consistently see Matt Ryan in the top 5 to 7 quarterback rankings out there. There is no chance in hell I can do that. He doesn't throw with the anticipation that you see from other pocket passing guys like Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. He doesn't have the mobility to extend plays. He doesn't have the arm talent to create throwing windows. He is by definition a system quarterback, and he has been given the best system around him in terms of having Julio Jones and a front office that consistently pumps first-round picks into surrounding him with talent, something you don't see from actual elite quarterbacks like Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, guys that actually develop talent that their team's able to acquire in the middle of the draft. Then we have Jordan Howard for the Eagles, and I think the general NFL fan was pretty shocked when Jordan Howard only fetched a 5th-round pick. Well, those that have been following this channel, it really was no surprise because he can't catch the football. When he's on the field, you know that the other team is probably running the ball. It's a pretty big disadvantage, and I think it's not a coincidence that the Eagles continued to invest in running back in the draft, taking Miles Sanders in the 2nd round, who's actually a versatile 3-down back. Jordan Howard's fine between the tackles. He's more than fine between the tackles, but his true inability to catch the ball out of the backfield makes him overrated in terms of public perception. Then we have Zay Jones for the Bills. I never understood why he was drafted as high as he was. A lot of Bills fans still want to believe in Zay Jones. For me, a guy that if he's ever going to become a good player, it's going to be as a physical, big-bodied receiver. He lacks that aggressiveness at the point of the catch. It was with him in college and has stuck with him in the pros. I don't see him ever working out. I would cut Zay Jones if I were the Bills. At 10, we have Germain Ifedi for the Seattle Seahawks. Really don't understand why they have not invested in a tackle to replace this player. He has been a turnstile for about 4 years there, making Russell Wilson run for his life. Number 9, Olivier Vernon. I heavily criticized the Cleveland Browns for trading Kevin Zeitler, one of the best guards in the NFL, for Olivier Vernon. To me, he is a very high-end number 2 edge rusher. Thought he was always pretty overrated in New York. Did have a career season last year before suffering injury, but he's a year older now. Coming off his best year of his career, you would project a little bit of regression to the mean there. I think the Browns really overvalued this player in that trade. Number 8, Tyrell Williams. You want to talk about overvalue. I don't know what the Raiders saw that they decided that Tyrell Williams was worth $40 million. He is an athlete with drop issues. He's an okay route runner, but I don't know what the hell they were looking at. But this is also the same organization that traded Khalil Mack away for a 1st-round pick. So, who knows? Number 7, Jason Pierre-Paul. I've thought he's been overrated. Both Olivier Vernon and Pierre-Paul, going back to, the 2016 New York Giants. A lot of people were picking them to win the Super Bowl the next year. On tape, the combination of Vernon and Jason Pierre-Paul was really underwhelming. And I projected some regression for that defense because I thought both of those players were a little bit overrated. And over the last 3 years, I think that take has held up pretty damn well. So we're going with Jason Pierre-Paul for the Bucs. We don't even know if he's going to play this year. He's suffering some more injury issues as well. Number 6, Lamar Jackson. The football world's very split on Lamar, but the fact that there are still people that really buy into Lamar Jackson as a future franchise quarterback, I cannot go that far. You watch his playoff game against the Chargers, really his film in general, yeah, he can complete throws. He can have some nice-looking balls, but no quarterback missed more throws to open wide receivers in the NFL. I think he was actually a full 4 or 5% ahead of the next guy down. Was a problem for him in college as well. I just don't know if he's ever going to be able to accurately throw a football. Number 5, Jadeveon Clowney of the Houston Texans. Obviously that freak name coming out of college, former 1st overall pick. Not a bad player by any means, but a guy that at some point in the next year is going to probably fetch that max contract. Something like what DeMarcus Lawrence is getting, and he just does not match Lawrence's production. Clowney's fine. He's a power rusher, good against the run. He can drop him into coverage. Versatile piece, but not someone I'm paying to be the number 1 edge rusher on my defense and probably the most expensive piece on your defense. Houston has him on the franchise tag right now. Someone is going to end up overpaying this player. Number 4, Blake Martinez. Most Packer fans and just general NFL fans will see the tackle numbers with Blake Martinez and assume he's one of the best linebackers in the NFL because they just look at stats. Look, Blake Martinez is consistently targeted on third downs by opposing offenses. Yes, his coverage grade took a step up last year by PFF. We'll see if he can maintain that because you can see how stiff this guy is. He lacks those coverage instincts. At best, he's a number 2 linebacker, and a lot of people would tell you that Blake Martinez is one of the 10 best linebackers in the NFL. I can certainly not get behind that. Into the top 3 here, Mitchell Trubisky, but he made the Pro Bowl after how many quarterbacks dropped out? I mean, God, Mitch Trubisky, for one, forced more balls into contested throw situations than any quarterback in the NFL. You can just tell when he comes off his first read, he doesn't really know what to do. He sprays throws. His accuracy grades are poor. He led the NFL in turnover-worthy plays last year. He led the NFL in turnover-worthy plays that did not result in turnovers. He was the only quarterback in the NFL that had receivers have less than 5 dropped passes on catchable balls last year. I expect a significant regression for Mitch Trubisky next year. Got wind that he is the most commonly bet MVP candidate for next year at 200 to 1. There's a reason the smart people in Vegas have him at 200 to 1. He is not a good quarterback, and the Bears will have to find a way to win with this window with a fantastic roster despite the play of their quarterback. Number 2, Kyle Rudolph. Great person. I live here in Minneapolis. Never fun to make fun of such a great guy, but as a football player, just got a big extension here. Yeah, he can catch the ball in the red zone and score some touchdowns, but at his size, he does not block. He is incredibly slow, does nothing after the catch, and creates no separation. I think he is the most overrated non-quarterback in the entire NFL. And then number 1, Nick Foles. This really was not that hard for me. He's a backup caliber quarterback, a good one at that. But to pay him $88 million and leave your fan base with just hopeless expectations for him to come in here and do what he did in Philadelphia, it's almost criminal to do that to your fan base. They are all going to walk away extremely disappointed by what Nick Foles brings to the table as their franchise quarterback. So that's the list. Again, please do hit that like button. We are going to do underrated players next, talk about a little more optimism. Should have that video out in the next few days. Let me know in the comments if I hit the nail on the head or if I'm way off. Excited to hear from you guys. Cheers as always. We'll see you for the next one. Peace.